When I attended the Royal Melbourne Hospital for my most recent G-tube change. So periodically, my G-tube needs to be changed because they break, and also they usually have a lifespan, the ones that I'm using have a lifespan of approximately 3 to 4 months. So it's a known thing that they have to be changed regularly. So anyway, I went in for my most recent tube change, and a dietitian who I had never met before in person, never spoken to her, she came into the room during the tube change, which is usually a private situation in a special treatment room between me and the nurse that's doing it. But anyway, she came in and the tube change was continuing. She never introduced herself. I didn't know who she was. I was talking to the nurse that was performing the tube change, and we were just doing our thing. She then pulled out the tube and put in the new tube. And it was at that time that we realized I was beginning to hemorrhage, because I've been having GI tract hemorrhages lately where I've been bleeding a whole bunch. We don't know why, because no one's investigated it, despite the fact that I've raised a concern multiple times about it, and that people are stopping me down the street and saying, "Oh, lady, you've got blood down your front." And I look down and I'm wet down in front of my tube, and it's just wet with blood, and it's stained and wrecked 32 t-shirts basically. So that's how many bleeds I've had like that. And people are kind of noticing it's a bit embarrassing to be down the street and your top is covered in blood. So anyway, I raised concerns with this with the Royal Melbourne. Nobody was doing anything. I raised concerns with the nurse as she was doing the tube change, and for whatever reason during the tube change it caused the bleeding to occur again. So she rushed off and got a towel, and I was holding a towel on my abdomen and it was bleeding into the towel, and we were trying to work out what we were going to do. I was asking if I should see a doctor. I thought I needed to see a doctor, but other nurses were coming in and looking at it, and it really wasn't stopping bleeding. And anyway, while all this is going on, and I've got multiple nurses talking to me, trying to work out what we're going to do about the bleeding, because I've never had a bleed before when I've had my tube changed. The dietitian puts down a household set of scales and says, "Get on there." When I'm in the middle of a bleed, I've got a towel on my thing, and we're trying to work out. She's like, "Get on there." And I'm like, no, because I'm a wheelchair user. If I get on the scale, how would I get on the scales? I'd have to have someone pick me up and put me on there. Well, none of the nurses could do that. So, and I understand why you can't just pick a patient up and hold them onto the scales. I'm a wheelchair user. Sometimes I use a stick, but I'm unsteady on my feet. And with FOP, we have to be mindful that if we have a fall, it can provoke an FOP episode. So we must avoid falls at all costs. So I was like, I'm not going to put myself at risk of a fall by trying to get onto the scales, because I can't actually do steps. So anytime I've got to step up, I can't do it because of my pelvis is affected and my hips. I can't actually step up physically. So to step up onto the scales, I couldn't do that. Even with a walking stick, it would have been impossible. And so I said, I'm not going to put myself at risk of a fall, because I don't want to develop more damage to any part of my body. I don't want to develop more additional bone in any part of my body from a fall. So I said to her, what about some other way to weigh me? Because I've been to a couple of other hospitals where one of the hospitals, they weigh your wheelchair, and then they have then they put you onto this giant pad in your wheelchair, and then they just deduct the amount of your wheelchair from the total weight. So that's how they do it. So you just literally wheel up onto this giant pad thing that's flush with the floor. So there's no stepping up or down. So literally you wheel yourself on and it's flush with the floor. But obviously they weigh your wheelchair first, so they know how much to deduct from the total weight. There was another hospital I went to where you put your wheelchair beside this other chair and you transfer across onto this other chair, and it weighs you while you're seated in the chair. Then you transfer back into your wheelchair, and then they have your weight. I inquired as to whether the Royal Melbourne had something like that. I was told the Royal Melbourne has no way to weigh a wheelchair patient. I just was shocked. Like, what? Such a major hospital has no way to weigh me. I don't even know what to say. Such a major hospital, you would think that they would have something. I don't know. So anyway, she's saying so this dietitian, her name is Louise, says that I shouldn't have a feeding tube because I refuse to weigh in. She's not realizing my side of it. There's a difference between I'm refusing to do something and I physically can't. They are two very different things. I physically can't step up onto a household set of scales. It's a physical issue. It's not that I'm refusing. And so I don't like it when it goes into the records that I've refused, not I physically can't and we don't have any other way to weigh her, which I doubt is possible. If it is true, I have concerns about that. And I think that that's an area that needs to be fixed at the Royal Melbourne. They need to have a way to weigh people in wheelchairs, because I would not be the only one in a wheelchair that needs to be weighed. So it needs to change. These changes need to happen. So this dietitian, Louise, come on, do better for your patients, please. When you come into other appointments and there's a fracas going on because something unexpected has happened, give the patient some space. Don't invite yourself to someone else's consultation. Perhaps make a consultation with the patient at an appropriate time. Don't come in when there's things going wrong and a patient's having a hemorrhage and then you're wanting them to get on scales and you're not taking account of the full conversation that's going on, because we were having a lot of mixed conversations at once. And actually, when a patient tells you they can't physically do something, understand that there is a difference between I physically can't, Louise, and I don't want to. They're two very, very different things. Take account of that when you deal with patients. And perhaps the dietitian's department or whoever, someone needs to take some responsibility and have a mechanism at the hospital to weigh patients in wheelchairs.